How could maps created 500 years ago show lands that, officially, would only be discovered centuries later? Think about it. Hand-drawn parchments, faded inks, annotations in the margins, and yet coastlines traced with a precision that doesn't fit the time. We're not talking about legends. These are documents you can see today in archives and museums. Some display continents with improbable outlines. Others suggest channels, mountain ranges, even rivers where, supposedly, no one had ever set eyes. And yet someone drew them, someone measured, someone recorded. If that was luck, it's a streak of accuracy that defies statistics. If it was method, what method? If it was inheritance, who held this knowledge, and why did it disappear? Today, we'll examine 3 maps that force history to explain the unexplainable. One that anticipates lands at the far south of the world, another that names a new continent before it officially existed for Europe, and a third that builds a puzzle from sources no one has ever found again. The question isn't if they exist. They do. The question is, how? Get ready. Each map tells a different story, and none of them allows for easy answers. In the end, you decide whether we're facing brilliant coincidences or the faint echo of lost knowledge. In 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis drew a map that still puzzles historians and cartographers today. On a piece of parchment, he traced the west coast of Africa, Europe, part of South America, and something more. At first glance, it looks like just another old map, but the longer you look, the harder it is to ignore the details. The coasts of South America are outlined with surprising accuracy for the time, when much of that territory was still unknown to European navigators. And then comes the most unsettling part. At the southern edge of the map, there appears a landmass that many believe resembles Antarctica. Except there's a problem. The continent would only be officially discovered 3 centuries later. And in Piri Reis's drawing, the region doesn't appear covered in ice, but with visible coastlines, as if it had been observed in a time when the continent was still habitable. Where did this information come from? Piri Reis himself left clues. In notes on the map, he claimed to have used ancient sources, maps from Columbus, manuscripts from men of the sea, and even records far older, none of which have survived to this day. Skeptics argue that the supposed Antarctica is nothing more than a mistake in proportion, a misinterpreted extension of South America. But for others, it's evidence that Piri Reis was not drawing alone. He was inheriting a lost knowledge, perhaps far older than we imagine. Whether coincidence or access to mysterious sources, the Piri Reis map opens the first crack in what we think we know about the limits of cartography in his time. In 1531, the French cartographer Orontius Finneus presented a map that still defies logic. On it, Antarctica appears drawn, 3 centuries before its official discovery. The most intriguing detail is the way the continent was depicted, not merely as a frozen landmass, but with rivers, mountain ranges, and visible interior regions. The mystery deepened in the 20th century when ground-penetrating radar studies confirmed that beneath the ice sheet, the outline of Antarctica bears striking similarities to what Orontius had drawn. This raises an unsettling question. How could someone in the 16th century represent geographic details that only modern technology has revealed? We're not just talking about vague, ancient sources, but rather a level of technical knowledge that would have required direct observation or highly advanced measurements. So what's more plausible? That Orontius made a brilliant deduction out of thin air, or that there are massive gaps in what we think we know about the ancient exploration of our planet. In 1507, the German cartographer Martin Waldseemüller published a map that would forever change the way we see the world. For the first time, it included the name America. But that wasn't the most intriguing detail. The map already depicted the New World as a separate continent, decades before explorations officially confirmed this division. Most maps of the time still portrayed the new lands as extensions of Asia. Yet Waldseemüller clearly highlighted an independent continent, long before this was proven. Some historians suggest it was simply a brilliant deduction based on rumors circulating at the time. Others argue he may have had access to sources or records now lost, documents that provided surprisingly accurate information. 3 maps. 3 moments when cartography seemed to know more than it should. But what if these discoveries were not really the first time those lands were seen? What if the world had already been explored long before the official history we know, and part of that knowledge was simply lost in time? These documents suggest that our timeline may not be as clear as we think. They are like echoes of an ancient memory, fragments of a past we still can't fully decipher. In the end, the biggest question is not about what these maps show, but about what might still be missing from our history. And you? Do you believe these maps are just errors and coincidences, or signs that there was once a civilization far more advanced than we imagine? Subscribe and keep exploring the mysteries that history cannot erase.